On this episode of the Star Wars Time Show, Matt and Nick will continue to get you prepped for Andor thanks to some new planets, aliens, and character insights from SDCC. If Cassian ain't your boy, then worry not. They'll also talk about how Din Djarin will become a reluctant leader in The Mandalorian Season 3, as well as Bo-Katan's possible new goals for her people. The Acolyte series will get some love too, thanks to the official casting of Amandla Stenberg. Matt will talk about Obi-Wan's former Nunchuck lightsabers en route to recapping the latest Star Wars canon from the comics verse. Of course, the show will end with the Question of the Week responses and the latest round of Top 5 Star Wars Fan Artist Features. Punch it, Chewie!
I'm never going to get a smooth transition to this show, my friends. It just doesn't work. So how about a 1, 2, 3. Hey now, everybody. Welcome to a brand new episode of the Star Wars Time Show. One where young Nick's feeling a little better from his COVID attack, and old, now furry face Matt is still struggling with a busted leg. But we are here to entertain you, annoy you, or to get you to forget about us. We're pretty good at the last two, so hopefully we just stick with bullet point number 1, and that is entertaining any and all Star Wars fans with this week's topics, which include Nope, a non-Star Wars property. But you know how we like to do at the start of the show sometimes. We like to share a little bit of our pop culture adventures in between episodes of the Star Wars Time Show. So that's why we're going to start with a little Nope action. But then don't worry, we've got some Andor, some Mando, some crazy stuff coming out of the Star Wars comic verse, especially with Obi-Wan Kenobi. I know the word crazy when talking about Kenobi doesn't really make sense, but you'll see what I'm talking about here once I pay off on my tease later on down in the show. Don't think Kenobi was just this cool, calm and collected dude his entire life. Because like I said, the comics these days are revealing some interesting things about Mr. Hello There. So we'll get into that. You might know what I'm talking about if you check out our short form content, which I'd love to remind everyone. Please do on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, right? YouTube.com/Star Wars Time Show. In fact, that is where you can find us every Tuesday, 2:30 EST on the ABC, if you know what I'm talking about. All right, Nick, so getting into a little pop culture stuff, starting with Nope. You know, there's a lot of buzz around this movie. Jordan Peele has kind of made a name for himself, and it's interesting to look at where his career has gone since he was, doing Key and Peele, a comedy sketch show with that other guy. I forget his full name. I know Key's in there somewhere, but
yeah.
He after Get Out and then what was it, Us? He's kind of earned a reputation with horror fans, sci-fi, whatever you want to call it, sci-fi horror. Nope's definitely in that genre, but he's earned a rep to tell a pretty interesting type of horror tale that may have some gotchas in it or some twists and turns, surprises. While also kind of having an overarching social commentary bit going on. With what he's trying to show you through his characters. So, Nope, I know, is getting like some killer critical reception. I went and checked it out, and while I will say it's a good movie and one that I definitely recommend checking out, I'm not sure that it's worthy of some of the praise it's gotten, some of the highbrows, the best of 2022. It's this so amazing, redefining sci-fi horror. I don't know about that. I still think, honestly, to me, the epitome of sci-fi horror, Nick, and I'd like to get your opinion on this, is still probably the Alien franchise, in particular Alien and Aliens. Alien 1 and Alien 2. I think those are probably the standouts in sci-fi horror. I know some of the older people they'll probably mention The Thing, shit like that. But what do you think? When you think sci-fi horror, talking cinema, not gaming, because sci-fi gaming, I still think Dead Space is the best sci-fi horror in gaming. But in film, Nick, what do you consider the best sci-fi horror that you've checked out?
Event Horizon was probably up there.
That's a good one. I forgot about that one.
Yeah, I mean that's super high up there in terms of just like the horror aspect and the space aspect. Yeah, I mean obviously Alien, like that whole franchise. I mean, to a certain degree, Predator is kind of in the sci-fi horror kind of realm as well. So
I agree.
Yeah, I think that those are probably the standouts and the ones that really garner the most, I would say, like the most respect from the community. I've never really seen I've never seen any of Jordan Peele's movies, not because like I don't like his stuff, but just because like I don't really watch things on release, and like sometimes I just get lost, and that's just what happens with his stuff sometimes is we're interested, we just don't watch it on the day. So,
and that's the bummer with his movies, because if you don't go early, you're more than likely going to get whatever big twist he had planned kind of spoiled. I'm sure you've heard about Get Out by now at this point in time, and Us for that matter. But I kind of circling back to Nope. I don't consider it to be this crazy, scary sci-fi horror. To me, it's more of it's almost like a nature movie, a fucked up nature movie, if you will. My favorite thing in the film, Nick, is this. It's kind of a long running gag that they do, and the movie opens with this, and it's kind of a movie within a movie where we're watching a horrific thing kind of play out on a fictional TV show set within the Nope universe. And you're kind of showed the aftermath early on, and then that kind of reels you in. You're like, why the fuck are we? Why are we learning about this Gordy monkey and what he did on set one time? But then Peele slowly folds it back in like an hour in and kind of lets you know, all right, this is why I showed you this early on. And it has an overarching meaning, but it also helps explain some of the character motivations. So I thought that was the most horrific aspect of Nope in terms of the UFO, whatever you want to call it. I thought it was well done in how they kind of draw out its full exposure, but then things get a little dicey in terms of, well, why is it doing this now and it didn't do it before? Why is it okay to do this when it wouldn't do it before? That type of stuff. Yeah. So I dug it. I thought, I think this her name's like Kiki Palmer or something. She plays the other main character's sister. I thought she was pretty fantastic. Dug her. Have never really noticed her in anything else, but to me, she was kind of the standout. That dude that played Glenn in The Walking Dead, I also thought played a pretty good former child star type of character. He kind of nailed that. Yeah. That character archetype, if you will. But in terms of like jump scares or I don't what's gonna happen, I didn't really feel that throughout. So I there's words I'd like to say, but I feel like that would spoil it. So I'll leave it at that. I still think it's worth checking out in theaters. Could be a good little date night thing. It is an overall good flick. I don't know what it's sitting at on Rotten Tomatoes, but to me it's in between a 75 and an 80 if you had to put a score on it. So to me, worth getting out there. I mean, so much so that I crutched my ass to a theater, had the wife and kid drop me off as close as possible, and then I crutched on up, used the handicapped elevator, and then plopped myself in the handicapped row. So it was good enough. I felt like it was worth the monotony of having to leave Castle Haywood here with the old broken leg, which still is not easy. We're about ready to head down to Hilton Head this weekend, and I'm just like, why? Why am I going? I mean, all I'm going to do is relocate my ass sitting from my basement to a condo that is going to have less amenities in my basement. You know what I mean? Just went to the doctor Monday, and she looked at my scar, and sure enough, she was like, nope. So not allowed in water still, because still have some scabbage going on the slit in my leg. the slot, according to Lenny Dykstra. So no getting in pools. You know what it's like in the South, my friend. I mean, I know Texas isn't as humid as South Carolina on the coast, but it's pretty fucking miserable to be outside, especially if you can't get in water to cool yourself down. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess I'm going to support my two ladies so they can see some extended family, and I'm just going to sit in a shitty condo, and hopefully I won't get a blood clot on the 12-hour drive down. Yay! I guess words to live by here. Try not to break your leg, especially over the summer. I can tell you now, it's 7 weeks since the break, 6 weeks since surgery. It has not been an ideal summer. Just isn't. Broken legs, no fun. But as many people have told me, and I have recounted to you here on this show, it could always be worse, right, Nick? It could always... Did you have anyone when you were dying with COVID tell you, well, hey, it could be worse, right? It could be worse, Nick. It's always...
I'm pretty sure somebody had said that, but like at that point, I just wasn't really listening.
I love it. And trust me, they are right. Yes, a lot of things could always be worse. But that's not usually the best thing to tell someone that may be down a little bit or going through something that sucks, because it's nothing they want to hear. You know what we want to hear is like, yes, you poor baby, we feel for you. It sucks. We're glad that we are not you. You know what I mean? Like that's what I want to hear. I want people to just be like, oh, you poor little thing. We feel so bad for you, little Matt, losing a whole summer, and it's probably going to be 6 months total of your life. That's what I want to hear. I like the negative stuff. Coddle me like a little child, if you will. I mean, in fact, right now, my right foot is burning but numb at the same time. So I don't know what the fuck that's all about. But 8/11, she said, we can get back to weight bearing. And looking at my schedule, it's looking like 4 to 6 months of fucking therapy to learn how to walk again, get my gait back, and then move on to learning how to actually be beyond just basic active. You know what I mean? Like getting into what I used to do. Riding bikes, running, lifting weights, deadlifting, squatting, one-wheeling maybe, so I can do this all again in 2023. You never know. But luckily, again, like I told everyone last week, my glass half empty mentality to life has served me well with this accident, because the moment it happened and I realized like, yeah, this is pretty bad. In my head, I already said, I'm going to lose 6 months of my life. So I kind of had myself prepared for all these doctor visits and the bad news. So luckily, my negativity has kind of been a win for me in this situation. You know, sometimes, Nick, it's good to be a Debbie Downer and just as a miserable fuck. Woo! So there you go. Nope, I recommend going to see a day late and a dollar short review of TV. Severance turned out to be pretty damn excellent. You got to give a little time to build up, but it ends on one hell of a cliffhanger. I'm excited to see season 2, and you know it's become a pop culture darling when it got a tease at SDCC last week. So Nick, you know, if something makes it to SDCC, that's usually the tip of the hat to, hey, franchise, you've made it. You've made it in the Geekverse. You know what I mean?
We watched that a while ago. Like we finished that a few months ago, and yeah, it was awesome. But yeah, it definitely took, like after the first episode, I wasn't that into it, but we went through, and then after I think probably this third one, I was like really hooked. Yeah. So it definitely took a couple episodes, but it's top notch.
And like I said, that it is. I feel like we've missed those cliffhangers since the streaming has started, to where you really are going like, holy shit, I can't believe we have to wait until next season to kind of see where things go. But it's not that empty feeling. Like I felt like there was enough resolution in the early plot points of Severance that the ending is literally pushing the boulder over the hill to kind of steamroll things into season 2, but they just kind of go, fade to black, we'll see you in a few months. And it's just, I got to give credit to Ben Stiller. You know, I mean, that's a guy that you would not think kind of ran that show and directed a lot of the episodes. I really think his eye and vision for the work was pretty excellent. It's very similar to the Jordan Peele thing, where you see these guys that are kind of known being over the top sketch comedy people, like slapsticky motherfuckers. Yet you sometimes your brain wants to pigeonhole them in that role, and then when you see them do these other creative things, it's like, oh, what the fuck? Look at that. Ben Stiller is more than a one-trick pony, so kudos to him.
Sure.
Last thing,
he did a great job.
I'm sure you didn't pay too much attention to SDCC. There really was no reason for Star Wars fans to do, which I don't get bent. I know some people are like, oh, yeah, Lucasfilm, nothing. Well, I mean, they just blew their load, 6 weeks prior at their own SDCC called Star Wars Celebration, so I'm not really sure what people were expecting. Lucasfilm and the Disney wing of Star Wars has never really had a presence at SDCC. That's always been more of a comic thing, and that's why Marvel kind of got its time in the sun. I don't know if you heard anything coming out of the Marvel wing, Nick, but Feige detailed all the way out to Phase 6. Timeline, fucking shows and movies. This does this, and this leads into that. And while I'm watching his presentation, I watched like a 3.5 minute clip that's on my bootleg. I'm just sitting there going, why don't we have a Kevin Feige? I know he's like tangentially attached to Lucasfilm, but he's clearly not doing what he does for Marvel, for Star Wars. And it just, I sat there and a bit of jealousy washed over me, Nick. I'm like, look at the fucking roadmap these cocksuckers have through 2024. They're very may well not be a United States of America by then, but we're going to have a motherfucking MCU Phase 6. I can promise you that. With movies that aren't going to get canceled, with TV shows that aren't going to get canceled, with directors and cast members that aren't going to leave over creative differences. And while half the properties didn't really intrigue me, I mean, the Thunderbolts, no fucking clue. The Avengers, the Kang Dynasty, okay. I know the Avengers, don't know much about Kang. Avengers Secret Invasion, Secret Wars this, a new Captain America. And I think the jealousy was more from why have they not been able to do this with Star Wars, right? We talked about this when Disney bought the motherfucking thing, wondering, will they do something similar to the MCU? And many people are like, no, that'll be too much. And then we got what we got. And now I think people are probably like, why can't we be like the MCU? Why can't we have a defined roadmap and phases where projects are planned and not going to get whacked? So, a Daredevil Lives 18-episode arc reboot of that. And both Vincent and Homeboy are coming back as Matthew and Kingpin. It's just like Feige gets up there, whips his dick out, and is like, I'm just going to make all you happy with my magic wand. And I don't know. It's, a little bit of jealousy, I guess, from a hardcore Star Wars fan. I love Marvel, but not nearly on the level of Star Wars.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't, like you said, I didn't follow anything on SDCC. Like, I saw the picture of the Marvel stuff. They've just had more time. Like, they've had more time to like build up these interconnected spaces, and that was their plan from the get-go. And the reality is that like Star Wars didn't take that tact from the get-go. Like, they went with the old approach of like, we're going to tell a trilogy of stories, and that's how we're going to do Star Wars once we get it into the Disney realm. And it didn't work out, and they've just, they're still trying to figure out the best way to go forward with the movieverse.
I know. It's like the last time they tried to chart out a timeline, I think at this point in time, it's essentially been nuked. I mean,
but also like it's hard to say, like, it's hard to say that the sequel trilogy like didn't work out when it made over $3 billion. I think it made over $4 billion worldwide, just in theatrical releases. So like, I think the main problem is like trying to figure out what's a good meeting point between like what fans want to see and that is also going to make money. And it's just not as easy to make money with Star Wars as it is with Marvel. Like, Marvel just makes money easier than Star Wars.
I guess it just feels like Marvel's willing to take more risks on low level shit. I mean, I'm not a Marvel fanboy. Like, I'm not crazy. I respect it, love the characters, but I'm not as deep into the lore as I am with Star Wars. So if you're Marvel and you're looking to make the biggest bang for your buck, they're choosing stuff like Thunderbolts and this and that, and people like me are going, what the fuck is that? But because it's been going for so long, since 2008, you kind of know a pedigree that is built in. I'm going to go. You know what I mean? Like, I'll go watch it all. And it feels like, and I get it, Star Wars is a more sacred cow than Marvel. Come at me, bro. It just is. Like, I mean, look how crazy Star Wars fans get versus Marvel fans. I know people are like, oh, don't worry, there's crazy Marvel fans too, but not to the point where Feige completely changed the direction of the MCU. You gotta remember, Lucasfilm, based on box office and perceived fan gripes, completely changed their plans for the future.
Yeah. And also one thing that people just for like omit or don't want to talk about with Marvel versus Star Wars is that Marvel has so much back content in actual like written form through comic books, through what's currently being built in comics now that's completely separated from the MCU. Like there's content that's available for the next 100 years of movies for Marvel, whereas Star Wars is being written actively. Like Star Wars is something that doesn't have a huge history like Marvel does of
you better watch out, man. The legend bros are going to come after you and be like, hey, they got all the legends, man.
I mean, we just have to accept that that's not open anymore. Or if it is open, then it's going to come in slowly like it has now. So, I mean, like, I'm done trying to like compare Marvel and Star Wars, because the other big thing that nobody wants to talk about is people in China and the East love Marvel. They don't like Star Wars. That's going to stop you from developing stuff at a pace that Marvel does, because Marvel knows that if I put out a movie, it's going to make $500 million, if not more, in China alone, where Star Wars struggles to make $100 million in China. So, I mean, that's just, I don't know if that's something that they're focusing on now, is like how to expand their audience beyond just the people in the West, because that's super important if you want to grow something to a scale that Marvel is. But that's a huge issue. That's one reason why the largest grossing Star Wars movie of all time, which was TFA, really didn't come close to Endgame. In terms of global box office, or was only close to like the big like Endgame and stuff like that, because the Western audience had a huge outcome for that movie. I mean, like when it comes down to it, money talks, and money talks in the East and it talks in the West. But Star Wars doesn't really it doesn't appeal to an Eastern audience as much as Marvel does.
I get you. As long as Marvel doesn't, get too progressive, they can keep showing their movies in the East. Outside of that, they're going to start getting stuff cut, because people over there, you got to remember, they're commies and they don't quite like some of the stuff that we have now. Although the way we're going, we could very well have our own Christian Taliban here in the next few years. So I guess we better watch out. I got to get the fuck out of Ohio, I can tell you that, because we're already going draconian with a lot of stuff that is just ridiculous. But oh well. Welcome to the US of A. I think my point was still, it's like, I mean, Marvel schmarvel. Star Wars, honestly, if humanity doesn't blow itself up, is going to be studied just like we study some of the shit that the Greeks and Romans came up with. The story itself. I don't know. I just feel like it's got a higher pedigree, and I just wish it was managed a little bit better, a little bit more like the MCU has been managed since 2008. That's all I'm getting at. I get all the other stuff, the nuts and bolts, the business, but when you have a baby like Star Wars and just what it means to the world and most of humanity, it just has always perplexed me that they can't seem to get a concrete plan around it and stick to it, and not kind of bend over depending on how the trade winds are blowing, or how the troll winds are blowing, or how your CEO's a fucking idiot and runs solo in May to give Mary Ass Poppins a wide open December date. But we're not here to solve those problems, because they're unsolvable. We're here to talk about all things current Star Wars, which, is few and far between, but we are getting close to 8:31, which means it's almost Andor time. So that's what we're going to get into. First, we got a few news stories, official stuff that is, for Andor, some of it coming out of SDCC, some of it coming out of interviews and whatnot. But my excitement meter is definitely starting to point up for Andor with each thing I read and with each discussion I have with young Nick on it. It's just, it has high potential to expose, I think, a lot of interesting stuff to fans that we may not know what we want. I think that's the most exciting thing for me. I think we're going to get some things that we don't know that we actually want or ever needed in Star Wars, because we're not going to, just like Rogue One, where we don't have to rely on the big tentpole tropey shit of Star Wars. Force users and Jedis and famous this person and famous that person and big name general here, big name Imperial officer over there. We're going to be following a grassroots rebellion movement through the eyes of a someone that has become disenfranchised with the galaxy thanks to the Empire's rule and mistreatment of many of its denizens. I think it's going to be a series that we can almost directly kind of correlate to our own lives, albeit without starships and blasters and whatnot. I think like Rogue One, again, you're not going to have the magicians and the wizardry. It's going to be the people, the heroes. Really, it's going to be a look at how any big war is won. It's never won by the people at the top, the people doing all the talking. It's won by the motherfucking poor people and the grunts that have to serve in armed conflict to keep the rich people happy. And I like that, especially when it's going to be coming through the lens of Star Wars. So I really am getting more and more excited for it. I never quite had the I can't wait feel like I had for Kenobi or the Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett and Ahsoka. But it's getting very close with each new detail we learn. So some things we got from SDCC, and they were minimal, but they may give us some things to riff on here, Nick. We did get a new planet mentioned, as well as a kind of a potential summary of what may be going on that planet with Andor or the Rebellion. How do you like that? Well, motherfucking I'm a lyricist.
New planets are always great. If it's just covered in sand again, I'm really gonna be fucking pissed.
Right. So
let's just be real. Like if it's just Tatooine 5.0 and we end up on this fucking planet and it's just like, oh, the dirt here is red instead of being, brown, then like I'm gonna be upset. Like I want to see more, and I know that there's more in Star Wars, but it is nice that we have something.
I know we make fun of him, but I think he is going to grant your wish, because I don't see Tony Gilroy wanting his series to look or feel like any other series. I think he honestly goes into anything he does thinking he is the best and wanting to stand out. So I honestly think he may be anti-sand, and we may not see one fucking grain of sand in all of Andor. How's that? That's one prediction. I'm going to go ahead and say take it to the bank. I'm going to say this could be the first Star Wars series where we don't go to a sandy or sand-like planet. Okay, anyone want to jump on that train? Anybody?
I think that some of the set picks that we saw were definitely at least dirt.
Oh, come on, man. But it was like rocky. The rocks weren't ground down yet in the sand yet. You got to give me that. Like,
we'll see. Or at least just explain to me why 95% of the planets in the galaxy are all sand. Like, if you can at least do that, if you can be like terraforming or something like that, I'm cool with it. But yeah, I hope so, because Tony Gilroy seems like he wants to put his stamp on Star Wars, and he wants to, stand out from the crowd. So maybe that's it. Maybe he can do that.
I totally see him going like in meetings, like pre-production, like, hey, listen, no fucking sand planets. You hear me? I don't want to hear anybody say the word Tatooine in my presence. If so, you're fired. That's how I imagine Tony Gilroy acting in his writer rooms. But anyways, this new planet, Nick, is called, and excuse my pronunciation, I guess we'll have to wait. It's called Aldhani, Aldhani, Aldhani. And it was referenced on one of the placards for some of the costumes they had on display at SDCC. And it sounds like it's a planet where he may get mixed up with the proper rebellion, or it could possibly be a planet he's on for one of his first early missions with the rebellion, or maybe even something he's doing that gets him noticed by the rebellion. Because the way it sounded to me in Andor, at least, is that, and we'll talk about this next, but Cassian, he's going to be a wounded individual, a loner, someone that's kind of got a chip on his shoulder because of all the shit that's happened to him in his life at the hands of the Empire and what it did to his planet and what it's doing to all these other planets and probably killing people he loves, so on and so forth. So we can't think of Cassian as the hero we met in Rogue One, especially towards the end. He's going to be a bit of a broken rogue type. He could be doing some shady shit just to stay alive and kind of stay above water. He's not. We're not going to meet him, and he's not going to be a rebellion hero. I think we're going to see some things that he gets into that get him mixed up with the rebellion, and then things kind of go from there. But we're not going to meet the Cassian Andor of Rogue One to start, especially in season 1 of Andor. So on the placard for one of his costumes, apparently a costume he will be wearing on this mission on Aldhani, it says, as part of his entry into the growing rebellion, Cassian Andor must undertake a dangerous mission on Aldhani. So I guess, Nick, if you kind of read it verbatim, are you reading it as this is his first official mission for the rebellion? Or is it like the Crips and Bloods where he's kind of getting beat into the rebellion by going on some crazy mission? Or do you think he's on a mission of his own that gets the attention of the rebellion? What say you based on that explanation there?
I think it's something that the rebellion gave him as a part of his entry into the rebellion. Kind of tells me that like it's like an initiation, kind of. Yeah, like you said, not. I don't want to say like they're doing this because they're like, oh well, if he dies, he dies. They just need to know that like if you want to join the rebellion and you want to be a high level operative, like we know he was at the end of his life, then like you need to prove to us that you can do these types of things, that you can undertake these types of missions that may be dangerous and you can get out alive. So
do you find that kind of funny though, that the rebellion is essentially doing a gang initiation like the Bloods and Crips used to, albeit without literally jumping him in?
But also like it's probably important due to the fact that like they've probably had Imperial spies that have tried to infiltrate their own ranks, and like this is a way that you can meet out like, hey, are you just an Imperial spy that like, you know, is just trying to gain information, or are you somebody who actually wants to put your life on the line to make change?
So if we kind of run with that idea, do you think it's just a dummy mission then, just to fully test them? Or do you think they do have some sort of end game in mind for the mission? Because you would think if it's just purely a test mission, you probably wouldn't want to send new recruits into something that, if they do turn out to be a spy, could expose the rebellion and its plans. But you still want to test a new recruit, so maybe there's some value to the mission. You know what I mean? Does that make sense at all? Like, is it just a throwaway to test his allegiance? Or do you think this mission on Aldhani does have some sort of overall benefit to the rebellion outside of getting a new recruit?
I think that there's value to it. I don't think that they would send him on it if there was no value, but I also don't think that this is going to be a solo mission for him. I think that, like, if anything, he may think he's on a solo mission, but there's probably going to be somebody else there watching him from a distance to see how things go. Because ultimately, if this is a dangerous mission, and this is something of relative importance. I don't think that you want to entrust it to just one person.
That's what I was getting to. Like, I just don't see the rebellion, especially at this point in time where they're walking on eggshells. They're still in cells. I don't see them sending a brand new recruit on something extremely important to the cause. Period. I think you're right. I mean, it'll probably be with a babysitter, or at least two of them. I'm wondering if Skarsgård character could kind of be Cassian's into the rebellion. I forget. I know he has a name. I forget what they're calling the Skarsgård in Andor, but maybe he's his first kind of rebel contact, and maybe Skarsgård's character is the one that kind of goes to whatever rebel cell he's a part of. Like, listen, I got this kid. He's motivated. He has a similar backstory to a lot of us, where his family and planet were decimated by the Empire. I think he's primed to kind of put into our beginner assassins program.
Yeah, maybe.
It's interesting. Yeah, I really wonder how he ultimately gets mixed up. I just have a feeling it's going to be kismet, meaning he's going to be doing something for him that kind of gets him noticed by the rebellion, and then I think things go from there. I don't think the rebellion is going to approach Cassian. I think it will more or less be he will have done something that kind of stands out within that underground network of people going against the Empire, and they'll find out that way, and then that's how they bring him in and maybe send him on this kind of initiation mission to Aldhani, which is not going to have sand on it. God damn it! I promise you.
Hopefully,
I think. Yeah, I'll talk about the bot here in a second. We also got to see one of Mon Mothma's costumes, one of her sexy gowns. I'm not gonna lie, like I definitely have a thing for redheads. It's kind of like my thing for Twi'leks and Togrutas. It's just one of those things. You know what I mean? I also have a thing for black strippers. All right, I love black strippers much more than white strippers. So we all have our things. But for some reason, Nick, Mon Mothma is turning me on. I mean, even her dress on this mannequin is kind of getting my juices flowing a little bit. Now, this could be a result of the fact that when you have a broken leg, it's also hard to kind of take care of yourself like you used to. So I've had a little pent-up man juice going on these past 6 weeks. So mannequins are kind of looking slightly erotic to me, but I am picturing what's her name's face on it, by the way. I think she is a lovely looking woman. But all we got here on her placard was the Imperial Senator from Chandrilla. I forgot she's from Chandrilla. Mon Mothma carefully navigates the dangerous shadows of Coruscant politics in her efforts to build a rebellion. So they don't give us there much, Nick, right? But
no,
the idea of watching Mon Mothma get into some shady shit in the Coruscant political scene, that excites me. I know politics in real life are a shit show, and they always are. They're really bad now. But for some reason, I am extremely interested in learning more about the politics of this era, because you got to remember, my friends, they're just like pretending to be a democracy. The Senate is a sham, but it still exists. So what are the politics like right now? I mean, you heard a little bit in the Kenobi series when we talked to Bail, but hey, my dad's a senator. We're good with the Empire. It was still that kind of stuff. I want to see what Mon Mothma, the future leader of the rebellion, is getting into as she navigates these dangerous shadows of Coruscant politics. So, do you think we see Mothma doing some like Jennifer Garner alias style like spy stuff on Coruscant at some point?
No.
No.
Especially not in this fucking dress. It's the most obvious thing ever. No. I mean, they're talking about the dangerous shadows of Coruscant politics in terms of what you were just saying, knowing that it's bullshit. Like, and of course she can't openly talk about the rebellion that she's building in the Senate building where all of her colleagues are. But no, I don't.
You don't see her in that dress and in her handbag having some sort of data spike coming in and trying to plug it into a terminal to get some information. Not even that, like,
no, because
not even like
because
data
if you
spying.
are the leader of the rebellion, why would you put yourself out into a situation where all it takes is one rogue person to see you and get you caught?
I don't know, man. You know, everyone's got to do their thing when it comes to a rebellion, a galactic-wide rebellion. You never know. And I think technically she's not the true leader of the rebellion, at least in season 1, because they still have to be in cells. I mean, we really did not see the rebellion form until the last season or 2 of Star Wars Rebels, which was starting to butt up against the events of A New Hope. So is she the true face of the rebellion at large at this point in time, or is she just one of the bigger players in one of the bigger cells? I guess that's something we may find out, but technically we should not be seeing a fully formed Rebel Alliance. Definitely not in season 1 of Andor, and probably not within the first few episodes of season 2 Andor, because if you remember from a few shows back, season 2 is going to cover 4 years. Every 3 episode is a 4-year block. I'm sorry, a year. I was right. Season 2 covers 4 years. Season 1 covers a year, and then we lead right into Rogue One. So in season 2, every 3 episodes, we're going to cover a year's worth of time. So by the end of that, yes, we should start to see the Rebel Alliance, the fully formed. I just wonder in season 1, is Mothma portrayed as the overall leader, or is she just one of the big players on one of the bigger cells? What do you think?
I think that over the course of the first season, I think we talked about this last week too, over the course of the season, you'll see why she becomes the leader.
Okay.
You'll see how and why.
So you're thinking by the end of season 1, we shift closer towards a fuller Rebel Alliance, or her just becoming the figurehead?
I mean, either one. I don't know if the distinction is important as much as it is the fact that it's about her character growth.
Right.
It's about her character growth into being the person that she was when we saw her, even when we saw her in Rogue One. So
yeah,
I think
she's still in Rogue One. Yeah. She's just a figurehead, more or less, talking and poo-pooing the hopes of her forces and those that want to be a little more radical in their approach. But yeah, I mean, like I said last week, I honestly am most excited to see the Mon Mothma character growth. I really am. Cassian, love Diego. I dig the character, but we know where the character goes. It's done. We know where he's headed. I guess we technically know where Mothma's headed too, but we've had such little exposure to her that I'm just more interested in kind of seeing what did she get into. Is she going to do a little espionage, even in her position? Who knows? That's the stuff I'm very interested to see as she navigates the dangerous shadows of Coruscant politics. And then last but not least, we got a few more details on... I'll be real here, man. I do not like this droid's name, this B2 Emo. They're just getting over the top, oh, it's Emo in its name. It's come on. Stick to the good ones, like the C-3POs, the BB-8s, the R2-D2s, the R5s, the R4s. The Forloms, for Christ's sakes. I don't know, B2 Emo? It doesn't even roll off. B2 Emo. But I guess he's called either, B or B2. I don't know if they called him B2 because eventually Cassian's going to have a K2, and as we learn here, B2, or more simply B, is a very old and weary ground mech salvage assist unit that has been towing scrap for the Andor family for years. The droid has a wide array of mechanical tools and various capabilities to meet the functions required. So, I guess the interesting thing here we learn about B2 is that he's essentially a family heirloom. That apparently it's looking like it may be Cassian's sidekick early on. It may be the only other living member of the Andor family at this point in time. I know there's been some thoughts that he may have a sister kind of floating around there, but the fact that they kind of went to these lengths to explain that this droid is the Andor family droid leads me to believe that may get some backstory delivered through the droid, or at least see the droid and possible flashbacks of the Andors kind of getting decimated and their planet and their home getting destroyed and having to relocate, and maybe B2's the reason Cassian makes it out and the other family members don't. I think a part of the naming of B2 and its attachment to Cassian, I think, is a parallel and a lead into his eventual relationship with another 2 droid, K2. So, do you see B2 kind of being like his R2-D2 for a while, like R2 was with Anakin and Luke, or do you see B2 potentially going out early on in his last act of service to the Andor family?
I mean, the droid looks pretty beat up, so it's definitely something that's been around that family for a while. I don't know if he fits the bill of like a droid that kind of rolls around.
Yeah,
with,
he looks clunky as fuck.
Cassian, you know, he definitely looks like like a clunker that was just kind of around the Andor household, for lack of a better term. So like that leads me to believe that he's probably like this is probably not going to be following him around, especially if it's like, you know, he's on stealth missions or he's doing something that requires, you know, some more high level tactics. I also don't know, like, I don't know if this droid is like an R2 unit, like an astromech unit, where you could plug it into like a ship's navigational system and it can like do all of that stuff. I think that this may just be like a character building moment, like you said. You know, that's why he has the attachment to K2 that he did, is because he also had this other droid when he was growing up that was, you know, a part of his life from a young age, and so he learned to have these relationships with droids through that. But yeah, it would be kind of odd if you saw that thing kind of puttering along with him on Aldhani and saying, you know, like, oh, he's helping me out. Like,
I agree. I agree.
know.
Like to me, he does seem more like a pure utility maintenance type of droid, almost like a gonk, where they kind of hang out in encampments and maybe stay on the starship, but they don't necessarily go on the missions like a BB-8 or an R2, or a lot of times, even though he didn't want to, a 3PO. So I'm with you. I think I don't know if he's going to be like a full-on Ned, to where he has no voice, he doesn't even beep, and he purely is just like a service droid. You would think with the history and the fact that they mentioned like, oh, it's been with the Andor for years, it probably is more like a pet, if you will. I know that's hard to say about a droid, but I don't know. I usually love new Star Wars droids, and I don't want. I'll reserve final judgment until I actually see them and see what B2 or B gets into. But just on paper, I don't like this droid. I don't like it. I don't like the way it looks. I don't know. Nothing really kind of stands out and makes me go, I want to get to know this thing. You know, you can remember the first time you saw that fucking ball droid, BB-8. You're like, all right, I kind of want to. I want to learn more about this little fucker. I remember coming out of TFA, I went BB-8 crazy. I mean, I bought huge BB-8 plushies, little BB-8 plushies. The BB-8 remote control. I mean, I was all over BB-8, and then like a lot of things, sequel trilogy, he kind of became slapsticky and really lost some screen time moving forward. But I don't know. I'm not feeling that with B yet. So hopefully that changes. I'm not saying it can't change, but right now, I'm not really feeling the B2 emo, especially the full name.
Yeah, it's not my favorite new droid either, but also I don't think that it's going to be around long. Like, I don't think
you
that
think
he'll
he's
be
getting
like a permanent
blown the
part of
fuck up, or he's going to like go down with the ship to save the last Andor or something like that?
I think you may be onto something there. Yeah, I think so. There's no way that he's going to be a constant companion.
Yeah, it's just the fact that they mentioned that it's been with the Andor family for years. That kind of leads me to believe maybe he's only flashback material. Who knows? It is odd that he was on the same stage as Cassian's costume at SDCC. I don't know if they're trying to imply like that they'll be on that mission to Aldhani, but if anything, I think he would serve as a flashback kind of point. Like, here he was. This is why he's special to the Andors, and this is why he's still with Cassian now, but may not and probably will not make it far into the future. Okay, so sticking with Andor, we got a few things relayed to us this morning via Total Film. I kind of want to zero in on the image first, because Nick, at least according to my eyes, if you're looking now, again, we're on the live stream, we're checking out a new image from Andor that features what I am considering to be a new type of Star Wars alien. So Nick, what say you? And I'll just do a quick description here for people on the radio. She looks blue to me. I don't know if that could be from the light, but she's definitely has a lighter skin tone. Her head is almost snake-like. Like the back of her head is elongated, but not like a cone head. It's not going straight up and down. It's almost like a cone head, kind of a little more parallel to her head. And the protruding part of her head, like I said, is very similar to what you'd see on a snake, very snake scale-like. I don't want to say she looks like a Na'vi from Avatar, but there kind of hints of that. The eyes aren't as big, but to me, like the type of skin tone is similar, and some of the markings on the skin. So, how about you? Is this a new looking Star Wars alien to you?
Definitely looks new. Like we've never really seen hybrid species before. Like we've never seen somebody who's like a half human, half whatever else or something like that. The way the skin looks almost makes me like think of a Trandoshan a little bit, because they have that like scaly type of skin.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, at least the parts of her skin that do scale out. But like you said, there are other parts where she's very not even humanoid, just very human. Like to me, Nick, she's more alien looking than say a Twi'lek, who essentially look like humans outside of different, some are green, some are orange, and then they have these big fucking things coming out of their head. But yeah, I'll give you that. She does kind of have that Trandoshan scale look, at least on the back half of her head.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see if they had like hybrid species within the galaxy, though, because I think that's something that they've never really approached before. And I know that a lot of like other fantasy properties had like have talked about that. Like you have half elves, like you can have stuff, half orcs and stuff like that.
Speaking of
that's
that,
what fucking.
Did you check out the LOTR deal from SDCC?
To be honest with you, I'm more excited about Lord of the Rings, this series coming up, than any of the Star Wars stuff coming out this year.
Oh, we're just like, change it to the Tolkien time show.
Lord of the Rings has I think it's just because it's been so long since we've had Tolkien, and I know like what this era is going to be about. Like I know like a decent amount about the Second Age, right. So I was like, I was hyped about it from when I first heard about it.
I do too.
So,
I was sitting here thinking when I watched it, I'm like, man, I used to be a Tolkien scholar, and it's probably the reason why I graduated Ohio State with a 2.83, because I would more or less just read his books in class, and I'm talking Unfinished Tales 1 and 2, Silmarillion, the appendices. I mean, Tolkien's got like 500 books, but they're not finished stories. They're just like they're beginnings of some stories that got finished. They're middles of some stories that never got started. I mean, it's weird shit. And his son tried to piece a lot of them together in the Silmarillion. But what we're talking about, the Amazon Prime Tolkien series, I know they're calling it the Lord of the Rings, but it's predates the Lord of the Rings. We're going to see how the Rings of Power were forged and how Sauron tricked all the main denizens of Middle Earth to put them on. The humans, which would have been the Numenorians, like the almost superpower humans. With
Numenorians are like Aragorn.
He was the last. He was the last of their kind. I mean, they were the humans that were touched by the light, and they could live for hundreds of years. Now they weren't immortal like elves, but they were more special than just the regular humans you meet in the Third Age of Middle Earth. But I was trying to remember. Like I know a lot of the. I know the Silmarillion. I think some of it's first age, second age, all that. I mean, it's like pre first age, then it's first age, then it's wild. And I'm starting to get all that weird FOMO I get with pop culture stuff that doesn't matter. I'm like, damn it, I should know this stuff. I should know Gil-galad and what he was doing and this and that and who the fucking dwarf leaders were at this time. And Nick, they're talking about, the war was over. I'm like, what war were they fighting again? Was it the Elven War, like where the light elves fought the wood elves, or was it the first war? No, the Morgoth, right? The war.
Yes,
okay.
the war with Melkor, Morgoth, who are the same character, but it was the first war
of the dark, like fighting the dark. Okay.
Yeah, fighting the darkness, and that was after. So, like, this is after like Melkor / Morgoth had been banished away off of Middle Earth, like out into the outer realms.
Right.
This is when like Sauron was actually fighting in that war too.
Because he was Sauron is essentially a Gandalf
like a
type.
lieutenant.
He's a Gandalf type of character, but for the dark, for the bad guys. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Like the Maya and the Istar and stuff like that are all these like demigod beings, and that's kind of what Melkor was too. But then he fell to the darkness. Sauron fell with him. Sauron was one of Melkor's chief lieutenants during the war that he waged against Middle Earth in the beginning. And then when that war ended, Melkor was banished from Middle Earth by the power of the other Maiar and stuff like that. But this is when, like, essentially Sauron's reemergence.
I just need that. There's a fantastic. It's an illustrated encyclopedia, a Tolkien encyclopedia. It's fantastic. I need to find where that's out and break that out. And
if you wanna find something, and for those of you listening too who may be like Lord of the Rings fans, there's a YouTube channel called Nerd of the Rings. Literally, it's just the word Nerd of the Rings. And this guy will literally, like, every week, multiple times a week, he'll put out like 10-15 minute videos on just like everything you could ever want to know about Middle Earth. So like you can go and you can look up, like, there are videos on Sauron in the Second Age. There are videos on who Gil-galad is, on who all of these key players are, based on the collected works of Tolkien that are available. Like, he has incredible amounts of content out there on Lord of the Rings, and especially now.
Wasn't Gil-galad like one of the elven kings that kind of let one of their kingdoms fall because he was an idiot or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember everything about it, but that is kind of the story of this age, is how Sauron took the form of an elf, like we see in the trailer, and how he essentially corrupts the elves that lived, and like they were living on a landmass that doesn't even exist in the Third Age anymore, because it was sundered and sunk, and that was how the Numenorians were killed and everything like that. Like,
their whole island, the island in Numenor essentially gets swallowed up by the sea because of Sauron and the fights. And all right, okay, I'm not that far off. I just a little rusty, but I'm with you too. As long as it's done right, they could get a little flashy. I mean, honestly, I know a lot of people don't like what he did with the Hobbits, but I still think Peter Jackson is owed a lot of credit for what he did for the Lord of the Rings, at least exposing it to a new mass of people through a different medium. And I know they're kind of sticking to his visual aesthetic on the Amazon series, which I think is smart. But I still wish he was somehow involved, because I still think the Lord of the Rings trilogy, I'm never going to put it above Star Wars. I just can't. That's sacrilegious to me, but it's right up there, if not in line, in terms of just pure quality. Like, if you want to talk quality from a just production from soup to nuts, Lord of the Rings probably is better, but it's never going to supplant Star Wars in my fanboyism. But it's pretty fucking close. It took me 20 years to really figure that out, but it was Peter Jackson. It kind of was like, hey, I watched Fellowship, and right after that bought all the fucking books, read them all. Then I was like, fuck it, I need to know about all the past shit they were talking about and half the poems and songs they were singing. I gotta know about that character that this asshole was singing about after he just smoked some pipe weed and had some beer. So, all right, well, there's a little tangent for you. Hey, look at that, Mythos Boba catching a live stream. One of our super fans, and like I said last week, he was kind enough to send me some of his fine goods. So thank you. Yes, Greg, anyone down there, they'll love Peter Jackson. I mean, I know they're not New Zealanders, but he's down in that part of the world. He's a hero down there.
Yeah, so back onto the Andor thing. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a new alien species, or at least one that is so wildly different from what we've seen in the past that it's unrecognizable. And to me, it kind of looks like a hybrid species between a human and something else. It would be cool if that did come in. But yeah, I mean,
Do you think she could be an Aldahanian? Like, could this be Aldhani? And are we, if you're on the live stream, we're looking at a new still from Andor, and Andor seems to be at some sort of bar talking to this blue alien lady we're discussing, who we've essentially said is a cross between Bosk, a Na'vi from Avatar, and just a generally pleasing looking female humanoid / alien hybrid. But this could be kind of a follow up to what we were just talking about. This could be that opening mission on Aldhani, one of his first missions for the rebellion, or a test mission, and maybe this is a contact he was sent to talk to. Maybe this is the target he's being asked to do something with. If you look in the image, Nick, she's got her hand on something. At first, I was gonna be like, is that a bounty puck? But it's definitely too big to be a bounty puck. So,
but I definitely think that it's a contact. I think that it's somebody. Knowing that Aldhani is out there and that we're unfamiliar with it kind of makes me lean that way. Yeah. But also, we don't know if there's other planets that are out there that we've never heard of before. So it could be one of those. But right now, I'll lean towards Aldhani. I mean, and you can just see the way that they're looking at each other in the picture, that this is, this is a meeting that is on the up and up. That is not just a simple, hey, I'm here for
a drink,
a shot of.
Yeah, exactly. He's not looking for some spotchka. He's looking for. Do you think at this point is he already becoming an assassin for the rebellion, or do you think we'll see him grow into that? Because that's more or less what he was by the time we meet him in Rogue One. He's a cold-blooded killer.
Yeah. It's interesting because, I mean, you could look at it and say that assassins are probably the easiest people to bring into a rebellion because they're a dime a dozen, and if you die, you die, and we just get another one.
Right.
But I don't know. I feel like Cassian may have shown a little bit more gumption and intelligence right up front, to where they don't just throw him in the line of fire and treat him as fodder, and that they actually do want to give him an opportunity to kind of build his skills.
Yeah, I think you have a point.
To turn into
he is more of like your black ops type rebel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like a Navy SEAL rebel, if those existed. I don't know if that's
like Sam.
What did Cara Dune become? A shock trooper? I wouldn't say.
Yeah, she was a shock trooper.
He probably is more like whatever the CIA's black unit is, or black ops, dark ops unit. He's more like that versus a Navy SEAL, I'd say, where the shock troopers are more like your SEALs. Cassian, to me, is someone that the rebel CIA has embedded somewhere, maybe undercover, or getting sent in to do like some of the really, really risky shit. We don't want a lot. We don't want a lot of ruckus. We don't want a lot of noise. So let's not send the shock trooper. Let's send Cassian's division or whatnot. So, maybe we'll see how he kind of develops into their assassin. Because that's really what he was. I mean, let's think about it. The first time we meet him, he blasts a guy after the guy gives him some information because the Empire was coming. And then ultimately, the reason he is taking Jin around to look for her dad is so he can fucking shoot him. I mean, he's not like trying to help get information. And he ultimately wasn't trying to help Jin. I mean, he eventually fell in love with her and got it, and then got all sappy. But up until then, he was kind of their go-to kill machine. Like, hey, if XYZ doesn't get the job done, Cassian will get it done. So almost like a fixer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It seems like he's definitely. Like he'll grow into that, but even at this level, like even early in the rebellion, I think that they've assigned a higher value to him than just like.
Well, it's funny you say that, because the article goes into, and this is an interview with Diego, and he was talking about how, if you remember in Rogue One, where Andor talks to Jin, essentially saying, "Hey, I've been fighting since I was 6 years old," and Diego was explaining, he's like, "Listen, that's a wounded person that has those type of stories to tell someone into their adulthood. Like, if you've been fighting your whole life since you were 6, that's all you remembered, you're probably pretty fucked up and broken, or have been pretty wounded and broken in your life. So he goes on to say, that talks about a wounded man. We find him in a place where he's not aware of how capable he is of transforming or being part of change or executing such a sacrifice. But he is the man that comes out from fighting since he was 6 years old. He's a very interesting, dark, wounded person. You're not going to believe that he's capable of what he does in Rogue One. So what Diego is telling us is that when we first meet Cassian, yeah, he may have some serviceable skills, but he is not Cassian Andor of Rogue One, the guy that the rebellion essentially hinged all its marbles on to, work with this Jyn Erso to try to get these plans, to try to figure out a kind of a Hail Mary against the Empire. So we may not see a very capable Andor, at least in terms of having his head screwed on straight. He might have the street skills, what you'd expect someone that's been kind of living on the street and being an immigrant since they're 6, but he may not have the confidence or even the desire to be a hero yet, which could get interesting. I mean, early on, he could very well butt heads with the Rebel Alliance.
Oh yeah,
not
oh yeah,
similar to Han Solo, but from a different place. Like Han Solo was just a selfish asshole who wanted to pay his debt and get Jabba off his back. That's why he's like, fuck you, there's no money in the Rebel. I don't think that's going to be Cassian's take, but he very well may be like, fuck you. What do you guys think you can do to the Empire? Look what they've done to me my whole life. They took my home, my family, my fucking planet. And you ragtag assholes think you're going to change something? Fuck you. I'm out of here. Like, I think that may be where we find him.
I think that he may be more like Saw Gerrera. He may be way more militant and way more
that's
throw caution to the wind.
Take.
Yeah. So, I don't know if he'll be in a place of like complete despair where he's like, well, what's the point of trying?
Like he's all cracked out in an alleyway.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I feel like he may be to a point to where he's like, it doesn't matter who else dies as long as they die. Kind of like how Saw was.
It's more DJ from The Last Jedi. That's that type of person. Like, listen, everyone, there's bad guys on the good side. There's good guys on the bad side. It doesn't matter. Everything's fucked. Just save yourself. And that was DJ's message in TLJ. And I think that's a good call. He very well may be like that. Like, listen, I'll take a buck, but I don't give a fuck about your cause. But you would think that the guy that directly watched the Empire fuck him over, he probably definitely has a little bit of a hard-on for the Empire in terms of he doesn't have any lost love or anything for them. But he on the other hand, he also probably doesn't have much motivation to get mixed up in a rebellion either.
Yeah. So, it will be interesting to see like where he starts and where he ends season 1, because obviously when we get to this end of season 1, it's not even his complete growth path. That's just kind of phase 1 of Cassian.
That's just going to be year 1. So I mean, we the first few episodes or even the half of the first season could be learning about him on his own and then seeing how he does ultimately get mixed up with the Rebel Alliance. Is it through some form of hijinks? Is he doing something for himself or some gang that he's trying to make a buck on that gets him noticed? Does he get recruited? It sounds like he's going to be a pretty depressed and uncapable person when we first meet him. So would the rebellion be recruiting someone like that? I don't know. And that's a lot of the interesting stuff now that we have to think about with Andor. There's a lot of unknown. I mean, we know where he goes. We know where the galaxy is going to be at by the time we get to Rogue One in our beloved OT, but we don't know the minutia. And that's what this series, in addition to what Kenobi did, in addition to what Bad Batch Season 2 is going to keep heaping on, we are slowly but surely getting a deep dive into those, damn near 20 years from the fall of the Galactic Republic to the fall of the Galactic Empire. And for someone that grew up with the OT era, that's my shit. That's the stuff. That's why I was excited about the prequels early on, because we're going to fill in some gaps and some character stuff for the OT. And while that didn't work out until many years later, thanks to the Clone Wars, it did. And now we have a much more complete picture of the Star Wars universe during the prequel era, after the prequel era, and then obviously our beloved OT and into the Mandoverse and beyond to the sequels. So things they are getting fleshed out. They are getting band-aided, if you will, and that's okay. I'll take it as long as those band-aids come in. So don't forget, everyone, Andor, August 31, just like we broke live last week on the show, it is going to have a 2-episode premiere on the 31st. So that'll be a fun day of Star Wars coverage for myself. But I'm expecting some pretty big things in those first 2 episodes, really laying the groundwork for what this first year of the Andor series is going to be about.
Yeah, for sure.
So we're sticking with the Disney Plus wing of Star Wars because, honestly, is there really another wing at this point in time? Not really. I mean, you got the books, which they seem to be doing well. It seems like that High Republic experiment has kind of taken off bigger and better than some people expected. I know those fans that consume the novels are all over the shit and the new phases of the High Republic. I just couldn't get into it. Give me a movie. Give me a game. Give me a comic book. Well, hell, I can't even do that. I stopped doing the comic book, so I'm full of shit. But Star Wars these days it's all about the TV shows, and that's fine for now. So we got a little bit of an update on the Mandalorian Season 3, and if you listen to the show, I wouldn't say this is much of an update. It's just kind of more of a payoff and confirmation of our excellence in Star Wars speculating. You know what I mean? That's just what we do. That's what we are not known for, but we are some of the best speculators on the internet. Just ask one of our 20 loyal fans. They will tell you, and some may even recount to you the moments where our speculations were paid off. Best still is probably my Book of Boba Fett prediction. That will go down in history as one of the most amazing accomplishments on the Star Wars Time show. I can't tell you, if you're a new listener, how many trophies we were sent and how many medals I have hanging in my trophy room due to that speculative win. But anyways, our buddy Pedro, who at this point is looking like he's got the best job in all of Star Wars because he doesn't have to do anything. He shows up like after the main production runs and, shoots a few pickup scenes in the costume, and he's like, all right, let me cash that check and I'll go in the ADR room and lay down all the vocals for this season. But he was interviewed by Total Film as well. Total Film, their Lord of the Rings issue, has some Star Wars in it, by the way. That's where a lot of these interviews are coming from. So if you still read books and shit or papers and magazines and shit, this might be a good Total Film to pick up if you're like Nick and I and you're a fan of both Tolkien and the maker's creation. But really, what Pascal was saying here, Nick, was something that, like I said, shouldn't be a surprise to our listeners or really anyone that has a brain while they watch Star Wars. I like to play it up that I'm some Star Wars speculative savant, but I really just watch things and the dots are fairly easy to connect. But hey, I'll take the titles if you want to lay them on me. But what Din was saying, he was, we've seen some of the leaked footage, and it does look like Din is leading or he's working with other bands of Mandalorians. And he was kind of asked in this interview, like, hey, is Mando going to be a leader in Season 3? Will he be leading Mandalorians? And here's what Pedro had to say. But like I said, if you've been paying attention, yeah, he probably is. And he's probably not going to want to, but his destiny is pointing that way. I'm telling you right now, especially in the Book of Boba Fett, those tangent episodes, they were just Mando. Dave and John don't spend that much time talking about all these Mandalorian legends unless they're going to be paid off on. The armor doesn't specifically tell the story of the mythosaur and the great Mandalore riding on top of it, raising out of the ground and bringing whatever to the people of Mandalore just for fun. That's not, oh, here's just a fun little history lesson for you nerdy Star Wars fans. It's to tease us, to tip us off to what's to come. We also knew from that episode that he's going to go to Mandalore. The guy is a freak, unfortunately, because of what the Armorer and Death Watch had done to him. They brainwashed him. He's in a cult, and he feels like he let his cult down, and he wants to atone for his sins. So we know he's going to Mandalore to look for those living waters, regardless of other Mandalorians want him there or want him to lead when they learn that he won the Darksaber in combat. We got to remember that. That's a huge caveat to the way the Mandalorian Season 2 ended. He is technically in position to claim leadership over the people of Mandalore and the planet himself. He did it by the book. He did it by the legend. It's his to wield. Who knows what that's going to do with Bo-Katan? Katie gave us some insights that we'll talk about here in a minute. But here's kind of what Pedro is saying when asked, what do you say about Din or Mando becoming a leader? And here's our buddy Pedro. And now these days, after seeing the Nick Cage movie with Pedro in it, that's the only character I see Pedro as, so excuse me. Mm-hmm. If he is stepping into a leadership position, he's reluctant to do so. I don't think that there's anything more interesting than a character being forced into discovering what they're capable of and who they are. That part has been really, really fun. Also, from my point of view, there's so many searchable ways to find the tonality of that. I just tried to achieve the subtleties of that kind of character development. So, let me parse this out for you people that aren't good with words. He's telling us that Din Djarin is going to be forced into a leadership position, whether he wants it or not, because of destiny. And what Din Djarin is ultimately capable of achieving in his life beyond walking up to deadbeats and saying, you know, cold or hot. You know what I mean? Din, kind of like Farm Boy Luke, and yes, I am comparing them at this point in time, I think share a similar path in life. You gotta remember, for 19 years, Farm Boy Luke thought he was just that. Thought he was destined to work on fucking evaporators and get hounded by his Uncle Owen for the rest of his life. And maybe, if he gets lucky, join the Imperial Academy and fly some TIE fighters. Luke had no clue what he was going to be forced into, and he was forced into it. Right? He was forced into it after the Empire blew up his homestead, and he was like, well, I got nothing here now. I guess I'll go with this crazy old coot and help him find a ride. Right? It was never... Luke never had, in his mind, plans to become the savior of the galaxy. And I think that is something similar to what we are going to see with Din Djarin. He was this guy doing his thing, very capable. Some would say almost had uncanny abilities to do his job, and he was very good at what he did. He was also very good at working with others and accomplishing amazing things with limited resources and personnel, something Luke also did early on. And like Luke, he is going to be forced into discovering what he is truly capable of, and that's more than likely being the next leader of the Mandalorian people. If not that, being the next closest thing to the first Mando Jedi in Tar Vizsla. I'm not fully sold on Din being a Force user, but he very well could kind of skirt that line. So, do you think I'm off base here? I mean, him being thrust into leadership, I think that's a done deal. He kind of earned that role by winning the Darksaber, whether he wanted to or not. But the one thing I want your perspective on is being forced into discovering what he's capable of. Is Pedro more or less telling us that Din is way more special than he has shown us in Mandalorian Season 1, 2, and Book of Boba?
Well, I think that way more special could be taken in different ways. I don't think that he's a Force user, if that's the where you were angling at. I think that he never looked at himself as a leader of anything. Yeah. He's never looked at himself as even the leader of a covert before. He looked at himself as I do my job, I go home. I do my job, I go home.
Worker
And
bee.
now he's in a position to where, now he's in a position to where, like, he may legitimately have to lead an entire society of people, and not just an entire society of people, an entire society of people who have been essentially hunted and eradicated for years. So I think that's more of what he's focusing on. I don't think there's any specialness about him. Like, he is who he is, and he is capable of what he's capable of. But I feel like he doesn't understand his level of capability yet because he's never had to.
Yeah.
And now he's put in a position to where he has to figure out what his capabilities are. And he's being forced to, not just because of a situation that he's in, like Luke, where like Luke was like kind of forced into doing it because his parents or his aunt and uncle were killed, and the only thing left for him to do was to make his own life. Like, he's being forced to find out his capabilities because of this station that he's unknowingly taken, and I feel like that is where him and Luke differ.
Yeah, I don't know. I probably got a little too close. I'm not saying Din's going to like become a wizard or anything, but like Nick said, he's definitely more capable of doing bigger and better things than Din even himself realizes.
Yeah.
And he's slowly learning that through these adventures. I mean, you remember we met him as purely a puck guy. Give me a puck, I'll give you a body, I'll get my credits, rinse and repeat. That was it. He was almost like a robot. He really wasn't much better than IG-11. He just give him a puck, point him in the direction, he'll go finish the job, and he'll do it well. Then he developed a bond with another being that kind of changed his priorities, and we saw what he was then capable of doing. He was capable of doing some pretty impressive shit. I mean, by the end of season 1, he is more or less taking on, with 2 or 3 other people, an Empire battalion, Moff Gideon's forces, all by himself with a robot, Cara Dune, Grief Cardboard, and IG-11. And a magical Yoda-like baby. And then season 2, by the end of it, he's enlisted the help of a former Jedi, a former ruler of Mandalore, a former ruler of Death Watch, and one of the most ominous bounty hunters in the galaxy in Boba Fett. And so much so that he even crosses paths with the legendary Luke Skywalker. If you ask Din Djarin, season 1, episode 1, hey, do you think you'll ever run into someone like a Princess Leia or a Luke Skywalker? He'd be like, nah, fuck no. Those people, they're out there saving the galaxy. I'm just a regular bounty hunter. And then, lo and behold, him and Luke Skywalker are essentially now Facebook friends. You know what I mean? Like, hey, Luke, they touched base again on Luke's temple planet and said, hey buddy, how you doing? Hey, yeah, but I do think Luke and Din do share some similarities. I mean, they are both raised by not their parents, which also we knew, at least from Luke's perspective, that was hiding some pretty intense lineage from Luke. So do you think that because Din was a foundling, like we may ultimately learn that he may have some lineage that kind of lends him to becoming this hero and this mythical ruler of Mandalore? Or is he purely going to earn this through his skill and soon to be realized capabilities? Like, do you feel he has any predetermined destiny based on his past that he may not know about, just like Luke?
Not based on his past, no. I don't think that he has like this, like Luke had, where we have to protect him because he's going to be the one that brings balance. Like, I don't know if that's the case with him. Like, I hope it's not. Like, I don't want some sort of like predestined bullshit with him. Like, he's a guy who found himself in a situation that he now has to figure out and deal with. And there is no preordination to say that, oh, well, you were the guy who was supposed to do this all along. It would feel cheap if that was the case. I want him to be a person that has to now grapple with this newfound responsibility that he didn't even know that he got himself into when he just simply beat up a guy who was carrying a sword. Like,
right.
You know,
See,
I think that's a cooler journey.
I'm with you 100%.
Like, you were supposed to do this.
I'm with you 100%. And this kind of goes back into why I feel like they completely failed the character of Rey, because she had the potential to do the same thing from a Force user's perspective. A nobody that becomes a mega somebody through their own efforts and willpower. That's kind of what you're saying about Din. Like, we want to see him rise to a level of hero on his own accord, not because of who he was related to or whose DNA he has flowing through his system, right?
Yeah. And I feel like they've already established that with him. Like, they haven't hinted at you are somebody else. They haven't like given you
no, you're right.
To think
I mean,
like,
outside of
somebody,
and we've talked about this, outside of just the clear, I feel in my mind, the armor has a clear either preference for him or holds Din in a higher light than the other Mandos in her covert. I know the big guy is up there with her too, but I think she keeps him around just because he's the big guy and he can move her fucking her kiln and her forge and all that shit easier than she can. But from season 1, it just seems like when Din is in the room and she is there, it's almost like she knows something about him or expects something more for him or greater things for him, and is kind of putting her eggs in his basket, even though we don't directly see her, you know, kind of supporting him from the forefront, more like behind the scenes type of stuff.
I mean, well, now especially because she's got nobody else. Like, she, like, literally her eggs are in one basket.
Right. And
like,
she kicked them out. That's the other thing. She kicked them out and then immediately told them how to get back in. You know, if someone, a lot of times, especially in, you know, religions, if you go afoul of the religion, you're more or less banned and blackballed.
Yeah.
There's no, I guess you're a Catholic. You can shoot someone in the head, then go do 10 Hail Marys, and in the eyes of God, you're good to go. But maybe that's how it is in the Mandalorian culture that they subscribe to. As long as you atone, you can commit any heinous sin you want, even though I don't think taking your helmet off is that big of a deal. But hey, every religion has their thing. But I don't know. It just feels like the armorer has knows something about Din, or just has a feeling about Din that he's the one that we should probably get behind.
Yeah. I mean, also, if you're a religion and you have one follower and you alienate your one follower, you don't have a religion anymore.
Well, technically,
like, that's just what
technically there's supposed to be other coverts, and she was just leading one.
Supposed to be.
Yeah.
Supposed to be.
Yeah.
That's what she's been telling this dude his whole life. It's like, oh, there's others out there. Have we ever seen them?
Yeah.
No. Have we ever seen her go check in on the other coverts to see how they're doing? No. You know why? Because there aren't any.
There you go. Yeah,
she's feeding this dude this bullshit to keep him mind controlled. And now, even in this moment where she's like, I'm gonna teach you a lesson. I'm gonna kick you out. Like you said, she can only go so far, because if he leaves, there's nothing left for her. It's
interesting.
Her fake fantasy world is over.
Yeah, no, I mean, you have a good point, but it seems like in season 3, at least through the footage I've been able to see, we do see a lot of Mandalorians that weren't in her covert because they were all killed. So that means that they are out there. So at least through the leaks and the trailers that people have seen, I think we can say that she's probably not a full-on liar. I think she is shady as fuck, like Nick is saying, but go ahead. You got to talk. I got one of those throat deaths.
But yeah, I was never a fan of the armor and her bullshit spewing towards Din, because ultimately it's just held him back in his growth as not only a Mandalorian, but as like a human being, you know? Like, now over time, as he's distanced himself from this covert and from the armorer herself, like, he's learned things not only about himself, but about the world. Just the world around him, and he's grown and gotten better from it. So I think that anymore, like, if they choose to like backtrack on that and to like increase the significance of the armor in his life again, and like start to reassert her mental dominance over him, it's only going to be to his own detriment.
Well, I think that's where they're headed because, I mean, she featured prominently in the Celebration trailer. I mean, she's seen multiple times around him in encampments with other Mandos. So, I mean, really, here's what we're looking at for season 3. We got the Moff Gideon shit. We got to figure out what he's up to and how Giancarlo said, you know, he's got a plan that he wants all the other Moffs and leaders of the Empire to kind of fall into. And Giancarlo made it sound like being arrested by the New Republic is right where he wants to be. So we got to see what he's doing there. And I do think some of it is going to be tied to what the Mandalorians are also getting into. On the Mando front, though, we got a few things to consider. Din's own journey, him and Grogu and trying to atone, which is going to boil into the greater Mandalore issue of the Armorer and her type of believers, and then Bo-Katan and her type of believers, and how are they going to kind of resolve their differences? Because they're going to need to, even though there's probably going to be a battle between them, at least early on, they're going to need to figure out, because I think the Empire is clearly not done with trying to keep Mandalorians as nomadic people and wiping them out systematically. So it's not like just because Gideon was captured or they took out one covert on Navarro that the Empire's given up hunting Mandalorians. So while the Armorer crazy Kool-Aid faction and Bo's faction, who is probably feeling a bit jaded at this time thanks to what happened with the Darksaber, there's going to be a little bit of conflict between the two, if not full-out warfare for a little bit, until they're reminded that, why are we doing this again? This is how we let the Empire fucking get one over us on the first place. This is how we let them get a foothold on Mandalore and eventually take it over and then glass the planet, because they could not rule us. They knew they couldn't rule us, so they just destroyed us. So why are we now back to destroying each other over wearing a fucking helmet or not? Because in the end, that's like the biggest difference. One faction believes you can't be seen and you have to adhere to this biblical creed, where the other one's like, listen, we need to survive and band together to get our planet back, because when you have Mandos working together, we can take on anything and anyone in any faction. Even the fucking Jedi, we can give them a damn good fight, but those wizards are probably going to win in the end, right? They did win in the end. Yeah. But the fact that the Jedi even had a prolonged war against Mandalorian tells you all you need to know about Mandalorians. They are the Spartans of the Star Wars galaxy. So even in small numbers, they can cause great pain and carnage. So I really think that's going to be the general gist of season 3. You're going to get the Mando-centric, the Mando factions and the beef they need to figure out, and then what the fuck is the Empire up to? So, but I don't know. I think we may be surprised about the Armorer in the end. I think, Nick, she's either going to surprise you and you're going to be like, oh shit, that's why she was doing what she was doing, or it's going to be kind of a sinister reveal. Like she's been playing a long game all along, and maybe, you know, she's been doing all this to once and for all take out the Mandalorians now. That would be interesting. You know, working with the leader of the cult who ultimately was just trying to subvert the cult. That would be an interesting take as well. So we'll see. February of 2023 is when we're going to be getting this baby birthed to us into the world. I'm definitely excited to get to it because we have not watched proper Mando since what? I mean,
end of 2020.
End of 2020, yeah.
Yep.
All right. David Moore's having himself a conniption here. Okay, we Katie Sackoff, who plays Bo-Katan, she also had a bit of a quote here, Nick. Very cryptic. But when asked about her character and her state of mind following the realization that Din has gained the Darksaber through combat and is essentially the righteous owner of it, Katie said, anytime you have a goal and you don't succeed, I think you reevaluate. And
I think that's pretty straightforward.
And if you've seen the teasers from Celebration, she seems a little off her rocker, or like she might be hitting the bottle a bit hard, and she's in a pretty bad, dark, and depressed place, which could lead her to make some bad choices. And I'm only saying this because she's literally sitting with Grogu, just the two of them, kind of saying like, well, I bet your dad never told you that he wasn't the only Mandalorian left. And it was almost sinister in the way she was speaking to him. So I have a feeling Bo could do something stupid early on because of this reevaluation of her goals.
Yeah. I mean, you have two options if you're Bo-Katan. Very clear two options. You either fight him and try to win it back, and then you can say yourself that you are the rightful leader of Mandalore. That would be a really bad decision that you're probably leaning to because of seeing that trailer. Or you can support him, or you can say like, hey, maybe this wasn't my destiny the whole time. Maybe I wasn't meant to be the leader of Mandalore, and maybe my job and my new goal should be to help the rightful leader of Mandalore bring us back to prominence in the galaxy. I think those are the two angles. Those are her reevaluation angles. Unless one of them is just, well, I don't want to be around anymore, and then she just flies out. Yeah, that's her two avenues, and she'll probably take both of them to some degree.
Yeah, I think she'll do something kind of rash at first, maybe fuck something up, but in the end, she'll ultimately figure things out, and hopefully her and Din are having babies on her throne by the end of season 3. Because who doesn't want to see Pedro and Katie go at it in their armor, right? Because if it's with Din, he'll keep his helmet on and just clink it against her face as he's trying to kiss her.
Hopefully by that point, he'll get past all that dumb shit. But we'll see.
I mean, I'm with you, but the fact that he feels the need to go to Mandalore in the first place just so he can get his Creed ship back doesn't lead me to believe he's looking to go a helmetless life anytime soon. But you never know. Maybe he'll, like you said, maybe the armor finally shows her true self and she's a shithead, and he realizes that she's been holding him back all this time, and he cuts her fucking head off, and here we go. And he never puts his helmet on again. But I don't know. I think he's still going to be your beloved bunker boy for a bit in season 3, because just the sad face he had. I mean, you could see Pedro, or it wasn't Pedro. You could see the stunt guy's face almost when she told him, "You're out of the club in the Book of Boba." You could see him going like, "Oh, but please let me back in, mommy." Okay, so Mando, long ways off, but it'll be here before you know it. That's just how life flows. All right, we got a couple more things before the fan segment. This one, not much to run off of outside of just an official confirmation. I mean, Nick and I, we talked about this at the end of last year, at the end of 2021, that Amandla Stenberg was tied to the Acolyte in a starring role, and now after SDCC and some posts to her social media platforms, it has been confirmed. If you're not familiar with Amandla's work, you're probably I think the biggest thing she did is the Hunger Games and played the little girl Rue in it. She also was in The Hate You Give, and she's been in some TV series. But she has now been cast in The Acolyte, and what you would have to imagine is the titular role, meaning she is the Acolyte. If you look at her social media posts that we have up on the stream right now, she's got like this kick-ass Darth Maul, almost like sports uniform outfit on, hanging with R2, hanging with Vader there, giving him a look. I believe she's a they, so I guess I shouldn't say her. But and apparently, at least based on what she's been telling some people now that this has been made official, does she wear hearing aids too, or is that just like,
I can't tell.
It's like
it's hard to tell, but it does look like there's something above their ear.
Right. Yeah, I tell you what.
Yeah, that's difficult.
She is a very nice looking young person. But apparently, Nick, she is a diehard Star Wars fan. I know a lot of these people say this when it's more or less bullshit, but if you think about her age, she's probably born in the aughts, right? She's got to be born in the aughts.
Probably.
So maybe she got in with the cartoons, which you could definitely see kids getting sucked into more than just even the live action movies at a young age.
1998.
Yeah. Okay. So
they're 23.
She's old as fuck. But and she's like, oh, I listen to Star Wars podcasts, and hopefully it's ours, but I highly doubt it. But I don't know. I'm all for it. I think the Acolyte could be pretty damn awesome. Okay, because it's again going to approach a point in time that has never been covered. It's the tail end of the High Republic leading into the Galactic Republic, into the Phantom Menace. The idea of it, the fact that we're going to be following someone that may finally be practicing the Sith religion in the open, which you got to remember, back in the timeline that this is going to take place, most people in the galaxy believed the Sith were dead, were completely gone and vanquished, thanks to Bane and his rule of two, and just kind of finally getting the Sith to back the fuck up and take a time out and chill to kind of to start the long game that honestly, even Bane's long game, I think we have to argue, did not get paid off until Palpatine enacted his own plan. Because Palpatine was the Sith to truly bring them out of the shadows and conquer their nemesis, the Jedi. I mean, Palpatine on his own, literally on his own, with a few pawns. Maul was a pawn, Dooku was a pawn, Vader's a fucking pawn, because he got half Vader in the end, half Anakin. Palpatine on his own accomplished what the Sith have been trying to do for thousands of fucking years. So the fact that the Acolyte is going to kind of take a look at those dark side believers, those that kind of were in these cults but remained hidden at that time, I think that's pretty fucking exciting and intriguing. What were these dark side religious people doing? How did they stay hidden? Was it because the Jedi were already entering their period of being having so much hubris that they literally couldn't see in front of their faces? And that's what this series should delve into. And I think coming at it from the perspective of this young lady who may or may not have been identified as a Force user, but got kind of corrupted by this hidden cult of Sith worshippers. I don't know. I think that has potential.
I mean, it's the most interesting thing to me right now in Star Wars, because it is new, and it's not just, it's giving us a completely new, untouched, and unspoiled, for lack of a better term, like region of time to go to. It's always awesome to see, stuff play out in the times that we're always familiar with and get more context. But we can only go so far into that. We're getting towards the end of, the content that we can make within the original trilogy, like between the original trilogy and the prequels. So I really do hope that this is popular and it gets the love that hopefully it deserves based on the quality of the show, because it's the first time that we've been able to really step away from just known Star Wars for a while. This is the one thing that I'm really most excited about, because it's all new.
I want to see,
throw bullshit at it.
I want to see the temple at this time. I want to see those Jedi in their golden robes and hanging out and just being kind of the bosses. I mean, they won the Wild West throughout the High Republic era. Thought they vanquished almost all of evil. I'm assuming in High Republic they're working on wiping out the Nihil and those fucking like plant dark side things that can take over organic species, and they're having a good time. And as you see in a lot of civilizations, once a civilization thinks they've achieved everything they can achieve and have become the pinnacle of civilization at that period of time, they're quickly reminded that they are not. And usually once you hit the top, you're about to hit rock bottom. I mean, it's happened to every great civilization throughout history, and we could be living through the next one right now. It is about time for a civilization to kind of crumble or go through some growing pains. And sadly, that could be for us living here in the States. As crazy as it is, I thought I would at least make it off this rock before that happened, but I don't know. I think we're headed there. So, yeah, Acolyte, I'm all about. I'm glad this has been made official, which means we might slowly get some more announcements over the next year. I believe this series is going to begin shooting this fall for a 2023 release. It looks like we got a new one in here. Mighty Max asking, so it's pre-Clone Wars. Welcome to the show, the live stream there, Max. And I'm with Black Series Clips. I think he's got you covered there. It's supposed to be like 80 to 100 years before the Phantom Menace. So really the only Jedi that should be familiar would be Yoda. And then, I can't believe I forgot his name because he just popped up in Obi-Wan Kenobi. The guy in the Inquisitor's tomb. Damn it. Either way, he would be alive too at that point in time.
Yep.
So
yeah, no, it's an interesting time period, and I'm happy that we're finally starting to explore something like that. I mean, we'll see as to what happens, and where we go, and who we get to see, and how things develop, but I think that this is the most exciting project in Star Wars right now.
And just a little thing, just because we like to have some fun, or at least I do, when it comes to canon, and canon that may kind of shock people. But when I was reading through Star Wars 25 this week, and please, if you want to get recapped on some of the comic books, I do the Star Wars run, the Vader run, and I'm doing Han Solo and Chewbacca, and the Obi-Wan run right now. And I typically do 1 minute or less quick caps and reviews on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. So make sure to check those out. But I did want to briefly talk about Star Wars 25, which had 4 short stories in it that started at the prequel era, went into the original trilogy, and then on into the sequel trilogy. But one of the interesting anecdotes that came out was in a little story between Anakin and Obi-Wan. It was kind of similar to the sparring match we saw them have in Obi-Wan Kenobi. So in this one, again, Anakin is like, hey, we're fucking Jedi. Why do we only use lightsabers? Why don't we harness the power of kyber crystals and blasters and starships and lasers? So even as a Padawan, he's trying to figure out ways to cause mass death. You know what I mean? Like literally, Anakin Skywalker as a Padawan is asking his master, hey dude, how come Jedi have never used any other weapons but lightsabers? Like we could really fuck shit up, knowing what we know about the Force and kyber energy, if we made weapons of mass destruction. And Kenobi's like, hold on, motherfucker. Force sucks his lightsaber away and has a little talk to him. He's like, listen, I once thought as you did. In fact, when I was a Padawan, I invented a weapon that almost got me chopped in half. And you can see it in the panel here if you're on the live stream. But Padawan Kenobi invented himself essentially some lightsaber nunchucks and was trying to use and master lightsaber nunchucks in a similar thought to what Anakin's like, how can we be more deadly with these things? And obviously Qui-Gon's like, hey dickhead, what are you doing? Like, wise up. And Kenobi became the much more learned and patient man that we know him to be. But the whole moral of the story, again, paralleled what we saw in that flashback. Obi-Wan was essentially saying to Anakin, fuck nut, we are Jedis. We are not destroyer of worlds. We are protectors of them. That's why we use lightsabers. And then the follow-up was, in the future, it was a little duel between Sidious and Vader. And it was like a complete opposite interaction. Master was like, hey, motherfucker, Sith we just don't use lightsabers. We use the dark side to torment and dominate our foes, as he proceeds to kick the living shit out of Vader and hold his own lightsaber at his throat as he was going to kill him. So that was a nice follow-up to how Anakin used to be trained and was tried to, with Obi-Wan trying to relate to him wise wisdom, to where he ends up with Sidious, who essentially tries to kill him during their sparring to remind them, A, I can kill you at any minute, and B, you're not a Jedi anymore, so quit fighting like one. Use the dark side in addition to your lightsaber. We use lightsabers just to show the power of our dark side, essentially. So I thought that was interesting. Obi-Wan Kenobi, at one point in time, used nunchuck lightsabers. Take it to the bank.
Very cool.
All right, so that takes us to this week's fan segment. For some reason, I did not have the top 5 pulled up, but that doesn't matter. I got it right here. We can find it. But we do the fan segment every week, and there are 2 avenues to participate for those that want to get involved with the Star Wars Time Show. The first is our question of the week, which we're about to go into. You can get into it by checking out our Instagram account every Tuesday morning. In the stories, in the profile, you will find the question of the week. If you choose to respond to it, your comment may be featured on the show. Just be wary. We read them as written, and if they sound goofy, we will probably laugh at them. But it's all in good fun. We're not making fun of you. We're making fun of you. All right? So this week's question is, do you think Andor will better? Well, good for me. So as the rules state, you got to read it as written. Do you think Andor will better than Kenobi, and why? Let me go ahead and get it up on the screen, and we can start going through some of the responses here.
All right. Yeah.
So you think I already fucked up some of the English. I'll do the story ones, Nick, because I think I know who some of these people are.
Who they are?
Yeah.
Okay.
First up,
one of them has no picture, so good luck with that.
Yeah. First up is, I'm pretty sure this is South P24. And his reply, no chance, because there's no Obi-Wan in Andor. So clearly South P, big-time Kenobi fanboy, and does not think Andor has potential to be better. The no-facer, I believe, is Rogue Ranger Customs. I don't know about better, but I think it'll slap just as hard as Kenobi. So much potential, and if it's anything like Rogue One, it'll be insane. Hope we get to see the true size of the rebellion and more of the Empire in the height of its rule. I'm with you. I am with you. Mighty Max, thank you again for the comment. Dave is not show running the Acolyte. That is Leslie Headland. But you got to figure, since Filoni is the chief creative officer, he has probably sat in on some meetings and has at least looked over what they're going to do and probably offered his sage advice. That's what we hope these days. Because if you are the CCO, I think that's a part of your job responsibilities. But no, I'm with Rogue Ranger Customs here. That's why I'm excited. See the true size of the rebellion and all these cells, as well as the Empire kind of nearing its peak right before it goes over the ledge. And last but not least, the Crazy Collector just says, I guess. Short and sweet. So there you go.
Yeah.
All right, so, Nick, now for my favorite part, when you get to read them.
Yeah, 2 more responses. First from Cluster Flux on Instagram says, I think / hope so. It's definitely more free to do what it wants, and that can only be a good thing. Kenobi and the characters it used were understandably quite constrained by established continuity.
There's an intelligent answer.
Yeah.
We usually don't get answers like that here. They're usually like either
right,
fuck or yeah. So no,
yeah. Or I guess
that is a good point though. If you think about it, they're really. I mean, outside of your Mon Mothmas and some of the other established characters, Gilroy and team have had a blank canvas, if you will.
Yeah. That being said, I do hope that. Or I do think that Kenobi did a good job of doing way more than we thought. With the continuity that it was built in.
I mean, again, I'm an asshole. I soapbox a lot, but I am not against saying when I was wrong, and I was 100% wrong when I initially said Kenobi can never leave Tatooine. You can't be doing stuff with Leia, blah, blah, blah. I was proved wrong. That was the right move. It made complete sense. And the arc that Kenobi ultimately went through, I thought was fantastic.
Yeah, for sure. Last one, Toy Talica. This is going to be one where there's some grammatical things. He says, maybe, because there is a bit more freedom on that story. Also, fans maybe does not have that big expectations on the character. So he's saying
it's
that
starting
probably,
to sound like my kid. Like, I honestly, and I get in trouble for this, but I say what I say. I was like, Charlie, you're starting to sound like someone that was raised in Waynesburg, Pennsylvania. And before people in Waynesburg get on my case, that's where my wife is from. I always kind of ding her a little bit on it. It's all in good fun. But yeah, it's that broken English kind of hillbilly dialect. And that's what it sounded like when Nick was reading here. But that's how my kid talks now. Like, she's just going to first grade, doesn't understand tense and stuff. So she'll be like, yo, I tried to do that, and I trust, or you betrayed me. I'm like, what the fuck does betrayed mean? And I was like, it's just betray, but you don't understand tense yet, or this, that, and the other thing. So what can I honestly say to you? But yeah, that was a good one. That almost got me laughing there. I always love when Nick has to speak in broken English. Also, fans maybe does not know doing it.
We get where he was coming from. Right. Fans probably don't feel as much ownership over Andor as they do for Kenobi, so they might be a little bit more lenient on it. Yeah. But that's the end of the questions. So the final segment of our show is always top 5 Star Wars fan artist features of the week. So if you want to get involved in that, make sure to tag @Star Wars Time Show on your post and use hashtag Star Wars Time Show on your post as well. That'll get it into Matt's field of view, and from Matt's field of view, it makes it into my field of view, and I am the ultimate decider of the top 5.
He is a god of the top 5. I'm just the demigod, and really tagging, sadly, because it sucks for me, but hashtags of they're so unreliable now. I just real quick, the thing on Instagram I want to talk about. Can we get away from everyone posting this post, like, make Instagram again? Like, has a survey ever worked? Has a petition ever changed anything? Does bitching on social media to the social media company ever really do anything? No. Instagram's never going back to a photo platform. It is what it is. Like it or leave it. Let's just stop. And the other thing, you toy people and this, like, these grandiose reactions to Hasbro using all cardboard now for packaging, and you can't see the figure through plastic. Like, come on. Is this really worth, like, getting heartburn over, my friends? Oh, I can't see the toy.
You know what the figure looks like from the fucking pictures?
Well, I mean, some of them have good points with quality control, because there are shitheads at, like, Walmart and Targets that will buy a toy, go home, and shove in, like, a fucking turd and return it. And if there's no plastic, the employee's not going to fucking look, because they're making $10 an hour and hate their lives. But it's crazy. Like, Instagram now, especially for the people we follow, it's either fuck all you people that use videos on Instagram, we're unfollowing you, you suck, reels blow, I hate your mom, to make Instagram again, and then I fucking hate all cardboard for figures. And I'm just going, is anyone else, like, just looking what's going on outside today in the world? Isn't that the type of shit maybe we should be focused on? I mean, people like me that buy $250 toys, guess what? Mine don't have fucking windows either. Hot Toys don't have any goddamn plastic windows on it, and I gladly spend over $300 on them. So is it that big of a deal? Okay? I don't want to call out anyone in particular, but it's like, my God. Fucking Hasbro! No plastic! Ugh. Like, really? Okay. Go ahead, Nick.
All right. So the top 5 this week are kicking off with @Imperial_Troops_Optics with an amazing little, I guess this has to be post Order 66 shot here of Wolf. No, this isn't Wolf. This is Rex, right?
Yeah, it's Rex, and I think what he's doing here, Nick, it's like a live action rendition of the of the Order 66 scene that we saw in the final season of the Clone Wars. You know, the some of the most fantastic episodes of that series when Rex finally gets the transmission as he's on board that Republic destroyer. And you know, Ahsoka's, if we're looking at this image, Ahsoka's behind him looking out through the Star Destroyer's glass as they're in a hyperspace tunnel. So yeah, I think you're spot on. This is him getting that message. And the other clones are some of his buddies, but they technically shouldn't have been there. I think one of them is Fives. Fives was dead at this point in time. The other one, the one that was on there, would have been Jesse, not Echo, like we're seeing here. But it still works.
It still works. I mean, the shot itself looks very clean and crisp. Obviously, the figures do too, because these are the super high quality Hot Toys ones. And I mean, yeah, it just does a great job of capturing that moment in real time. I mean, even the expression on, I mean, I know you can't change the expression on the figures' faces, but it fits so well as to what Palpatine is probably telling these people right now. Like, hey, man, guess what? It's time to go. It's time to fucking destroy all Jedi. So here, let's do it.
Yeah, no, it's a shot. It's like I'm looking at all these. I talk about it every week now. I mean, it's just all these fucking dolls I ordered years ago. I mean, I'm still getting dolls from like Mando season 2, and that show feels like it was a decade ago. But I can't do anything because I got a busted leg, and I really don't think hanging on my crutches or getting in my chair to try and do a toy photo shoot would go well, especially for someone like me. But when you see shots like this from Imperial Troops Optics, it's like, man, I just want to look at how pretty they are. Look at how lifelike these things are. I just want to get out and do a little snappy snap. I'm looking at my Empire. I got my Empire Luke hanging out here, my double Bobas, my Clone Wars Ahsoka, Clone Wars Skywalker, Clone Wars Maul, and they're all just sitting on my table, wondering where they fucked up in life to end up at a collector's house to where they sit on a table and collect dust. They could have went to a better home and have been cherished, put in a glass case with lights, or even had their pictures taken. But no, they ended up here where toys go to die.
Maybe one day they will, whether it be when you sell them to somebody else or whenever you get the energy to get back
I need
up
to,
and
man.
get out there.
I've got so many figures that I know people want and I know you can't get anymore that now is the time to go. I mean, someone just asked me, hey, I'm looking to spend almost $80 on a Figure Arts Princess Leia figure. And I'm going, I have her. That's $80 just sitting on my shelf. Well, I should. I mean, all the Black Series, dude. I mean, I have hundreds of them. Hundreds just laying on top of each other in stacks. If I could just scoop them all up and be like, $2,000, I'm not getting you're not getting any fucking boxes. I'll look for the accessories. Here you go, take them. I think I would do it. I want to get just to the Barbies, and then I want to stop looking at how much I've spent on the Barbies because that's always it's rough. Like it's rough when you do the math on my Sideshow orders over my full time being on Sideshow. It's not good. Like let's move on. Yeah, let's move on.
All right, so moving on next up is at Homemade Galaxy on the IG. It's another little shot where Palpatine is involved, except this time he's the primary focus instead of just staring at the back of his head. And we see another moment where he's probably just walking away from tearing down Vader mentally.
Look at that fucking, that scowl on his face.
This just beautiful Palpatine smile, and in the background you can almost just feel Vader clenching his fists and gritting his teeth together because he knows there's nothing he can do about it. He knows that Palpatine just called him a big baby piece of crap that can't do anything. But you know what? What can Vader do? He can't do anything. Palpatine will pull your arms off and then throw you back outside, just like he did in the comic books. And it's just such a good representation of the relationship between Palpatine and Vader, where Palpatine essentially pulls all the strings and there's nothing that Vader can do about it.
It is. So, it's just a fantastic summation of Palpatine and Vader's relationship by young Nick. The photo itself, like I'm thinking Homemade Galaxy got a custom head here and might have painted it because I don't think that is the Black Series head. But if it is, my God, what a great looking little 6-inch figure. And the fact that he got his robe to lay down, I'm wondering if this is an aftermarket robe that he got, because, you know, Hasbro sends these motherfuckers in robes that look like KKK hoods. You can't get them flat. They always get that point on them. They never really mold around the face. But you are right. And when you were talking about Palpatine, it's just like, he truly is one of the most impressive, if not the most impressive villain of all time. He actually pulled off his plan. You know, the plan that most villains end up getting spoiled right at the end because they sit there and talk about their plan for too much to the good guy? That didn't happen with Palpatine. He fucking did it. I mean, he had an empire running for 20 or so years. That's not too shabby. And if you also think about the character, he went from being a face to an actual character in Return of the Jedi. But really, when you first met the Emperor, outside of seeing how subservient Darth Vader was, did you ever look at him and be like, man, that's a scary motherfucker. He's powerful as shit? No.
Yeah, no, I mean, no.
I looked at him as like just some old asshole that for some reason has my man Darth Vader getting down on his knees in front of him. Like, that never really checked with me. But unlike what the prequels did for Vader, where I think they kind of failed telling us how Anakin became Vader, one character I think they nailed in terms of fleshing him out more is Sidious Palpatine. He probably got the best overall character growth in the prequels. Yeah,
100%. You get to see him go, literally go from this, I'm interested in your growth, little Anakin, at the end, like this almost fresh-faced kind of senator from Naboo, to the most hated person in the galaxy pretty quickly.
He really did. Like, if you think about it, the prequels were supposed to be about Anakin's story. I think George did a much better job telling us about Sheev's story, ultimately.
Yeah.
You saw him as Insidious form for the first time and what he was doing behind the shadows, but he was doing that in conjunction with the, you know, kind of the dark ops work he was doing within the existing government. I mean, he staged the whole getting rid of Valorum. That was all his plan, so he could then get nominated to Supreme Chancellor. And then from there, the next pillar to fall was, now I need them to make me an emperor by giving me emergency powers because of a fake war I've started. Just fucking brilliant. But it just goes hand in hand with this brilliant shot from Homemade Galaxy. Nick nailed it when he first talked about it. It is the epitome of the relationship between Sheev and Lord Vader. It's perfect.
At Homemade Galaxy. Well done. Well done. Next up is a Lego shot here from at Tong Wars, one of our favorites. And this one shows us some, it looks like clone era troopers going through Tatooine, has to be, after having exterminated a bunch of Tusken Raiders, but in the background you can see looming probably the figure of Anakin Skywalker, who had helped them go through and kill all of these.
I didn't even see that little dickhead back there. I didn't even see it, but yeah. So when you were just like, oh yeah, you got. I mean, they're obviously 501 clones, okay. So I'm like, oh, maybe, you know, Vader still had a hard-on for Sand People, so he sent his 501st down there early on in his career as the Dark Lord of the Sith, just to mow more down. But you're right, he's in there in Lord Vader form, as we'll call him, before he became Darth. So it must be a what if from Tong Wars. Like, hey,
he made a pit stop on the way to Mustafar. He's like, I gotta go wipe out some more Tusken Raiders.
I got to kill those annoying fucking younglings I've always wanted to be killing. You know what? Before I go kill the rest of the Separatist leaders, let's go murder some more Sand People, because you know what? Fuck them. So yeah, you're right. He whacks a few of them and then he heads off to the lava planet to finish the job.
Yeah. So. Good stuff here. I love the setup. I love the environment that Tong Wars was able to stage these guys in, and it really is kind of a cool in between the temple and Mustafar shot here from Tong Wars. So excellent stuff. All right, next up is an awesome crossover shot So again, like I told everybody before we started, the only movie like I went to go see a movie. It was an older one that's been out for a while, but I saw Jurassic World Dominion. I was a fan. Oh, definitely thought it was better than Fallen Kingdom. Obviously, the movie itself still has little problems, but I love dinosaurs, and that's why this one made it in. This is from at Killcutter Photo, who's been on an absolute tear. Killcutter is putting out some incredible work, but what we have here is an alternate scene from what we saw in Return of the Jedi when Luke is dropped into the Rancor pit, except this time it's a T-Rex pit. There's no Rancor. It looks like Jabba the Hutt somehow found a T-Rex mulling about the galaxy, captured it, put it under his big ass throne.
He went to fucking Jurassic World, dude. It's all this shared universe. Yeah,
shared universe for sure. And now that's what Luke has to tangle with. So you can see the Gamorrean guard all the way into the gullet of the T-Rex. And now we know what happens next. We know that Luke somehow has to find a way to tangle with this big dinosaur. I just thought it fits so well in world. Like, I thought that if you wouldn't have known that T-Rexes weren't a part of Star Wars lore, this fits pretty well together.
You're right, 100%.
I mean, great job.
Just like the one Killcutter did with Maul, stabbing a T-Rex through its brain, it just works. But this one, I think Nick is correct. It does completely feel like something you could find in Jabba the Hutt's palace. I mean, we learned through the Book of Boba Fett that place is way bigger than we thought. It's got hidden passages and nooks and crannies all over the place, knife-wielding Grievous droids. And so, I mean, the T-Rex does sub in perfectly for the Rancor. And you're almost getting a full recreation of that moment. So we are seeing the T-Rex swallowing the top half of the Gamorrean guard while Luke looks on with his leg bone getting ready to stick it in its mouth. Although I don't think the T-Rex could pick Luke up with his hands. And I was going to ask Nick, T-Rex versus Rancor, who wins? And I think the Rancor would absolutely destroy a T-Rex just because it has functioning arms.
Yeah, I think that's a huge advantage. I will say that Rancors, I don't know, like, I do think that it would just get stomped. It's almost like the King Kong versus T-Rex thing. Like, I don't know the size disparity between the two of them if they were next to each other, but like King Kong absolutely destroyed a T-Rex because of like, it's got huge arms that it can use to keep distance and punch it and do all this other shit.
Opposable thumbs are pretty magical fucking things when you think about it. And if you can grab something's jaw and rip its face open, you usually have a leg up. I'm kind of glad the way things go in the Jurassic World movie. I won't spoil it. You get what I'm talking about when it comes to T-Rexes. Yes. But in this universe, I'm pretty sure a Rancor would just absolutely toy with a T-Rex. Like it wouldn't even be a fight. I mean, he could block any head thrust with those long ass like orangutan arms. He could jump high enough just to land on it and break its back if he wanted to. And he could, like King Kong, rip its fucking face open if it felt like it. So
that's right.
Plus he's got the Rancor's got some pretty nasty claws too, if I remember him. He could almost just stab into him. So I'm like you, brother. Yeah. I love myself some dinosaurs. T-Rex has always been my favorite. And I love that this one from Jurassic Park has literally made it this far into the canon of Jurassic World. But I think our buddy the Rancor, Boba's Rancor for sure, would have its lunch and then eat it for lunch. Definitely.
Agree. So at Killcutter Photo on a tear, always a pleasure to see him in the top 5. And last but not least, closing out the top 5 for this week is at VinFaith_custom. And what he's done here is just an absolutely incredible job of staging a cool environment.
And these are the baby figures. These are the 3-inchers, 3.75.
Look at that. I mean, like, to know that too, like, just brings this to the next level. So what we see here is our good friend Reva from the Obi-Wan Kenobi series and Mr. Hello There himself, Obi-Wan Kenobi, in a bar fight, for lack of a better term. I mean, they're in a bar.
That the bartender, that's fucking Yak Face. The character known as Yak Face, that is him.
Oh my god!
And then you got a Nikto. Like you got a little Nikto back there, and
Nikto in the back. Yeah, I mean, And there's just so much fun stuff happening here, like so many different scene building things that Vin Faith did in this shot. So you see Reva sliding across the bar, her double lightsaber fully ignited. You got Kenobi on the ground, like trying to hide behind the bar, shooting a gun, like shooting a laser pistol at Reva. You got Yakface, the barmaid, just sitting there, like not knowing what to do. The Nikto's kind of like, oh my God, what the fuck's going on? Shit is knocked over. You can see what looks like some sort of fluid container got knocked over when Reva slid across the bar. I don't know. It's just such a fun, dynamic shot.
I was gonna say it's just a dynamic scene. It's like a cut scene of their chase on Dayu is what this is. You know, they, instead of running through alleyways, they ran their way through a bar at one point in time, en route to him escaping on that, you know, pilotless cargo ship that Haja had him set up on. But that Reva figure, especially at the 375 scale, just looks absolutely wonderful. I think these are 375. Maybe they're not. Either way, who gives a shit? It's a damn good looking toy figure action shot. It's not easy to make these little pieces of plastic, even with all the points of articulation, look like they're moving and they're in the act of action, and that's what VinFaith_custom has achieved here. But Reva, I think I'm going to keep that. I'm considering canceling a lot of the Black Series I pre-ordered just because it's just something I'm going to have to work on, Nick. It's like I almost have to order them, but then down the road I can cancel them, and then it's okay in the brain, if that makes sense. Yeah. But I'm definitely keeping this figure because she looks aces, man. Yeah, aces. Sure. They still haven't. I know we hadn't talked about toys a lot on this show because I'm trying to keep things short for Nick. But they've only revealed the Purge Trooper from the Kenobi series and an Obi-Wan from the Kenobi series. I'm pretty sure we're going to be getting a Vader, and you're for fucking damn sure if he's got a battle damaged head, that's an instant day one pre-order for me. But I'm wondering if they're going to do any of the Inquisitors at the 1/6 scale. I mean, Reva is the natural choice, but I think she would make an absolutely killer figure, especially if they gave her real hair. That would be a kick-ass 1/6 scale. But that would. Good looking one of Reva here from Vin Faith. And as Nick was about to say, I think that's it for the top 5, right, my friend?
That sure is. That's it for the top 5. That's it for the show. So hold on, Matt, bring us to our close.
I can't take us out yet. Godzilla has arms, doesn't he? Look it up.
Godzilla has smaller arms.
He doesn't have like T-Rex arms, but he definitely has arms, I think. So Bat.
Yeah, I think
that's why
he does have arms.
Bat, we got you on that one. Godzilla. Well,
I guess it depends
arms.
on like how far back you go, because like the original Godzilla had arms, but they were like way not T-Rex style because they were attached at a shoulder, kind of like
some
humans
dude
are.
In a suit. Like
yeah. But like now he's got like fucking hulky arms.
Yeah, I'm pulling up Godzilla vs. Kong. We got it. Like, come on.
Yeah.
I forgot Millie Bobby was in that. Is Millie Bobby Brown a good actress? Is she really? I can't tell.
I liked her in everything that I've seen her in, but again, it's only been like a few things, Stranger Things, and then
he's like fucking Schwarzenegger. I mean, he's got like HGH arms in Godzilla vs. Kong.
Yeah, no, he got swole up.
All right, I just had to check on that because Bat's like, yo, Godzilla and Kong. I'm like, I swear Godzilla has arms, so I need to do this for myself. But yeah, okay. Now, Nick, I will take us home. It's time to put episode 223 to bed, and you know how we do that. We try to get a little self-promotion in there. We try to give you the knowledge that you need to impart upon other like-minded individuals. And that is StarWarsTime.net. There's always time for Star Wars Time, and that is our home on the internet and the best way to kind of clue people into the show. We have all sorts of helpful links for new fans and old fans. You can subscribe to the podcast, which is now on Amazon and Podchaser and all the other big ones. Like we've told you a million times, just get signed up. And if you can leave a rating and review, that is better than giving us gold. It's not, but that's what we tell you because we want you to feel special. You know, we don't want to take your money. We do, but we don't. We are like one of the last remaining Star Wars fan anything that doesn't charge our fans for our content. And I don't know why, but Nick and I have both always been like, at least me, if you ain't big and bad, how the fuck are you able to charge people? That's how I feel. I know a lot of people disagree, and I'm saying if you can get your money, get your money. Until we have literally a chat that nonstop scrolls while we're talking, I don't feel right charging people. So that's another selling point for the Star Wars Time Show. It's free, as they used to say on those monster truck commercials. But remember, you don't need a script. You don't need diagrams. You don't need PowerPoint slide decks. You just need to tell them, A, there's always time for Star Wars Time, and the best place on the internet for spending time with Star Wars is StarWarsTime.net. It's where you got all of the important stuff, okay? And the last little cherry on top for those new listeners out there, and we love you long-timers and anyone that has joined us like Mighty Max today. Hopefully you'll come back. Keep them coming. Numbers have really, for us, skyrocketed the past few weeks, which is encouraging. I'm not sure if it's an accounting error in the tracking platform that we use or what, or the fact that we're on Amazon and some people stumbled upon it, but let's keep it going. That makes me happy. Now, before we leave you next week, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm going to have to talk with Nick. I'm going to be on the road and potentially not broadcasting. So if Nick is going to do a solo, that's probably what it is going to be. Otherwise, we may take off our second show of the year just to kind of get prepped up and ready for the push into Andor. But stay tuned to the socials. Instagram is probably your best bet for announcement type of stuff, but we'll let you know if there's going to be a show next week or not. I'm guessing he'll probably do a solo if there's something to talk about. Otherwise, we may not see you for 2 weeks. But don't worry, once I'm back from that, I'll be moving into rehab and physical therapy and slowly getting back to normal just in time for 2023. All right, my friends, as we leave you, don't you ever forget this. If you listen to the Star Wars Time Show, the Force will be with you. Always.